Hi there, in this video we're going to look at something called levels. It's the thing I do the most in Photoshop. I open up an image and I sharpen up the blacks and the whites. Ready, steady, cool, huh? Here's another example, looks good, and then bam, looks better. All we're doing is making the blacks and the whites super strong using something called levels. Let's go and do it now in Photoshop. All right, let's get started. So from your exercise files, go to File, Open. And we're working in our exercise files and we're going to be using O2 color. So double click to go inside there. Inside of here, we're going to open up levels O1. Click open. All right, so first thing is we're going to find this adjustments panel. Okay, so this is where we find a lot of the adjustments we're going to do in this color section. If you can't find it, go up to Window and come down until you find adjustments, and it should have a little tick next to it. Cool, and if you hover above them all, you can kind of see, I can't point to it as well, but you can see the name appears up here, watch. Okay, so the one you're looking for is levels. It's this kind of histogram looking bar chart type thing. Click on him once. Cool, and what ends up happening is nothing. Except to know that we've got this little new layer that we'll talk about in a little bit, and this big ugly thing opens up. Okay, now this thing is simpler than it looks, okay, because let me show you the technique here. Basically, this is all the color information in our document. And you'll notice down the bottom here, there's a black little pointer, there's a kind of a gray one and a white one. Basically what it's showing is that there's no really white information and no really black information. There's a chunk of other stuff. There's quite a lot of light gray. You can kind of see in here, there's a lot of light gray. And even then that doesn't really matter. Basically what you want to do is grab the dark guy and drag him to the right, click, hold, and drag him. How far? Just keep an eye on my image over here. You see the further I drag him, the darker it gets. What we want to do is basically drag him to the kind of first hump. Okay, so halfway up the first little hump here, and you'll notice that if I turn my preview on and off, okay, so my levers layer here, turn the eyeball on and off, it just really sharpens up the shadows or the dark parts. Same with the other side. Grab the white, drag it to the left, and how far do you drag it? Basically just halfway up the first hump. Or at least until you feel like it's looking good. Okay, there's no like absolute science here. It really depends on your image, but that's the really good place to start. Drag the both ends in until they're halfway up the hump, and often it'll fix your image. There's no specific way to drag it. It just depends on your image. So I can drag it to the left and it lightens it up, and drag it to the right and it darkens it up. So it really depends where you want it to be. I'm just dragging it back and forth, looking at my image until I find something that I like. Remember, turn the eye on and off. Have I made it better? Have I made it worse? Okay, it's better. It's pretty oversaturated, it's pretty sharp. And that, my friends, is how levels work. And it is the thing I do most often when I open up an image, especially if it's something I've taken myself, and it's a way to kind of really get the rich blacks and the pure whites. And what Photoshop has done is that it's put it on a layer that I can turn on and off. So later on, I can come back to this and either make adjustments, okay, or just turn it off and go back to the original. It's very quick, it's very easy. What you're going to do now is a little exercise. Go to File, go to Open, and there's one in there called Levels 2. Now what I've done throughout this course is that if there's ones that I've taken from a website called Unsplash, Unsplash is a cool website for commercial use images that you don't have to pay for. Okay, the only thing that they require is that you leave the artist's name and where it came from. So that's what I'm doing. So this one here came from a paid stock library site. They don't require it. I paid to use it. This one here I didn't pay for, but Matthew Hamilton and his amazing photography just needs to be credited here. Anyway, so open up Levels 2, click open, go through the same process here. Go to your adjustments panel, find levels, drag the hills in from both sides, the center slider, try left and right depending on what you're looking for, and that will give you some practice with the most common thing to do in Photoshop, in my opinion. And in my current opinion, it is time to get on to the next video. All right, see you over there. Hey there, in this video, we're looking to enhance colors. I hate saying the word make colors pop, but that's kind of what we're doing. We're just trying to kind of like lift some of the colors. So we're gonna take this image that we've been working on and ready, just kind of richen it up, especially the background stuff. This image here, ready, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, colors are definitely enhanced and maybe some popping going on. Now this technique is, after levels, is one of the first things I do. So step 2 in my fixing up my images is levels first, which we did in the previous video, and then I look at vibrance just to kind of lift and raise some of the colors without going too far. We might have gone a little too far in this image, but that's okay. Let's learn how to do it now in Adobe Photoshop. All right, to get started, we're going to open up 2 files from that same folder called O2 Color. I've got open Vibrance 01 and Vibrance 02. Vibrance 02 is from Malvista. Tira magazine. Great, so we're going to have vibrance 1 to start with. And what we're going to do is, in our adjustments panel, we're going to use this one here. It looks like a kind of a V with a gradient in the middle. It's the vibrance adjustment. Click on that. Now I just mentioned that vibrance is a good replacement for saturation in most cases. Okay, so if you have dabbled in Photoshop before and you use the hue and saturation slider, okay, saturation is fine, but vibrance is definitely better. Why is vibrance better, in my opinion? Vibrance, what it does is it looks at the image, okay, and let's say the shoes are quite red already. Okay, but this kind of colored boards in the background are quite washed out. So what vibrance does is, watch this, if I drag up saturation to the top, kind of to get this really blue color in the background here kind of popping, this red has to be oversaturated, okay, and gets too much. So I'm gonna turn that back to 0. What happens with vibrance is, watch this, when I drag this up, you'll notice that the blue in the background gets better, but it leaves the already saturated colors alone. So it's just generally just a really good, I don't normally drag it up this high. I've got this example just because we've been using it already. Let's have a look at the Vibrance 02. Okay, so same thing. I've got to my adjustments panel, I'm gonna go to the vibrance, and watch what happens when I drag up the saturation. It kind of, like, I'm going way too high, right? I'm going all the way up to 100, but you'll see the greens start getting quite strong and the blues come out of here. Let's go down, up, down, up. Okay, but the problem is these colors that already had quite a strong color in them, okay, they start becoming kind of, I don't know, surreal or hyperreal, just a bit too saturated. So let's leave this here and crank up this vibrance, and you'll notice that the greens are the leaves. You might not notice, so I've got it up to 100 and I'm going to turn the eyeball on and off. You'll notice that like the blue in here really came on strong, which is cool. And the leaves got a warmer kind of green in there, but you'll notice the bag down here, or at least the colors in here in the, I'm going to call it a scarf, they get a little bit more, but not as much as these. So it's more like the already saturated colors just get a little tweak, and the ones that are just quite weak in terms of their color saturation can get it lifted up, okay, to match some of those more saturated colors. All right, that is going to be it for vibrance. You can use both of them, vibrance and saturation, to go completely overboard. But that is it. All right, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, vibrance. Hi there, in this video, we're gonna change the color of stuff. Okay, so we're gonna change it green and make it pink, and then actually pick any color we like. Same with this one here. We've got red shoes and ready, green shoes. All right, it's super quick, it's super easy. We're gonna use the hue and saturation adjustment panel. Let's do it now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, let's open up 2 files. They're in the same color folder we've been working in. Open up Hue 01 and Hue 02. Okay, with Hue 01 open, let's go to Adjustments. And to change the color, we use this one called Hue and Saturation. Click on him. Now what we wanna do is under Hue, okay, this hue slider here, grab this little, I call it a little house, white house. Okay, a little arrow thing there, click it, hold it and drag it left. And slowly but surely, see the colors updating. Go on. Okay, drag it all the way to the right as well. Okay, that'll get you through your full range of colors available. And one thing you might do is I'm gonna pick any sort of color here. Okay, and the other one you might play around with is saturation. Okay, so they say the color's not quite, poppy enough for you. Click, hold, and drag it up a little bit. I'm gonna max mine out. Okay, it goes a bit too high, but you can kind of see I can just raise it up a little bit. Cool, and I want you to do the same thing for, this is the one we worked on earlier for levels, okay, Hue 02, do the same thing. Open up Hue and Saturation, drag it around, see if you can change the color. Nice and easy and fun. Just a little side note here is, I've worked on a few jobs where I've been in charge of photographing, say, a product. Let's say it was glasses. Okay, so we photographed, there was the same style, but a range of colors. So what we did is what everyone does is that you photograph kind of one of them. Okay, say we pick the color red and we photograph it, we get the right angles and we try a few things with lighting, we get it right. And instead of, you know how when you're on Amazon or eBay and you're going through the different color options and somehow magically that shirt or those glasses, they're in the exact same position but different colors, and you're like, how did they line those up and photograph them all perfectly? They didn't. Okay, it was somebody like me who went, yeah, let's just do one, and later on in Photoshop I'll go and adjust them. And yeah, I sat there with the glasses and went, yeah, the blue color, and then I grabbed the slider and went, and with the blue color, and I'll be looking at the glasses in my hand and looking at the Photoshop and going, yeah, it's close enough. Okay, and it was that. It's like, I feel like it's a confession. Okay, but yeah, that's, you know, that's the easy and quick way. You know, color matching is super hard regardless, you know, lighting and stuff affect it. And if you, like me, had no budget and just needed to get them done, it's a quick and easy way to adjust the hue. All right, so practice with Hue 02, and I will see you in the next video where we start looking at selectively adjusting the hue. I'll explain more in the next video. Hey there, in this video, we're going to change just one particular color in an image rather than the whole thing. See the yellow in the glasses here and the yellow in the shoe? Ready? Hey presto, magic, the green and blue and all sorts of other cool colors. Let's go for pink. Same with this image, Chuck Taylor's, all sorts of cool colors, okay? And it's only affecting the shoes, not the color in the background. Let's learn how to do that now in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, from the same folder that we've been using called color, let's open up Selective Hue 1 and Selective Hue 02. Okay, and we're gonna start with 01. And we're gonna go, like we did before, we're gonna use the adjustments panel and we're gonna go to hue and saturation. Now the problem though is if I use hue, and I just wanna change, say, just the shoe here. So I'm gonna put it back to 0. Okay, I just want to change just this part, or just let's do the yellow. Okay, the yellow of the sunglasses and the yellow of the shoe here. But to change it, if I want to make it pink, okay, where you go. So the yellow sunglasses are now pink, which is awesome, but everything else has changed color. It's kind of cool, but it's not what we want. We want to just change the yellow. So put him back to 0. And what you do is see this thing that says master, okay? That's doing everything. What you can do is you can be selective about the colors. So you say, I want to just change yellows, please. So click on yellows and start dragging that. And voila, okay, it'll affect just the yellows. Cool, huh? Okay, so now you are going to be pink. Nice. Like always, it's an adjustment layer. I can turn it on and off. I can always go and amend it. Now there will be times where, let's say I want to change just the sunglasses yellow, but not this yellow. That's going to require us to do a selection and a mask, which is a little bit later in the course. Definitely doable, okay? But if you want to change everything that's yellow, super easy, just select it from this drop down and adjust it. I'd like you to practice with Selective Hue 2, okay? Adjust both the background color and the shoes. So reds, and this guy here, I'm giving it away, it's cyans, okay? So do the same thing as we did earlier on. Have a practice, and I will see you in the next video. Hi there, the name of this video is pretty much a giveaway. We're gonna turn colorful images into black and white images. But the cool thing is we're gonna have lots of control about how it goes black and white. Same with this one, black and white it, okay, color, black and white. We're even gonna add a tint to recolor it. All right, exciting times. Let's get into it in Photoshop. Okay, so to get started, let's file open. And let's open up two files from the color folder. It's called black and white. There is an 01 and an 02. We'll start with 01. Now there's a few ways in Photoshop to make things black and white. The best way, in my opinion, is under adjustments. There's a slider here. Okay, this one here called black and white. Second row down, third one in. Click on that. Again, it's this non-destructive layer, which is cool because you can turn it on and off. And up here, okay, depending on what you last did, okay, you might set it back to default. And it's made it black and white. Now, what's cool about this is that it is adjustable. So if I turn this eyeball off, you'll see that this is kind of considered reds, right? But let's say when I convert it to black, it's this gray, but say I want it to be darker. The reds, I can drag this way. You can see you can kind of like, you got more control about it going black and white rather than going full black and white and then trying to fix it with something like levels. You've got this kind of full control here. So you just go through and decide like how you want this thing to do. So let's say I find that too dark. So I'm just gonna raise the reds. Okay, I want this color here. What color is it? It is like a cyan. So I'm gonna grab the cyan to try and make it lighter. I'm trying to make it a little bit more monochromatic, I guess. So you just work your way through until you find something you're happy with. Now, one little tip for you is this option here. Okay, if you hover above it, it's got a terrible name. Okay, it's got this drag an image and modify slider. Okay, so you can click on this little hand here, and what it allows you to do, instead of having to like work out what color that is, you saw before I turned the eye on and off, I'm like, you're cyan, you're magenta, and then turning it back on and trying to adjust them here, you can actually just drag on this. So I've got this selected, it goes a darker color, and let's say I want to darken up this, I click, hold with my mouse, drag it right to make it lighter, drag it left to make it darker. So often this is just easier. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of just drag them around. Maybe the background needs to be a little bit lighter. So it picks the colors for you. Say this guy here, I want you to be a bit darker to match this. Now, obviously the colors are being used in more than one place. So you will find that, okay, you might have to rob this one and kind of deal with the consequences where the color's being used over here as well. Later on, when we get into masking, you will be able to kind of just work on a particular object. But for the moment, we're just doing some adjustments, clicking, holding, and dragging. Let's jump to the second example, do the same thing, and I'll show you one last trick. So adjustments, we're gonna go to black and white. I love this little inky stuff in water. We'll use this a little bit throughout the course, but I'm introducing it now mainly because I am sick of looking at shoes. Okay, I've decided for a shoe theme for this course. And I kind of regret it. We're only at like video 10. So now we've got ink and water, and what we're going to do, the same thing as before, we can just adjust these, okay? But it's probably easier to click on this and say, because you see there's like two main colors in this ink splodge thing. Okay, so I'm going to turn them on, and you can just kind of start dragging. And let's say I want to make it everything darker, so I'm just dragging it to the left, okay? And it just kind of picks what colors. Okay, work around. Maybe a bit too dark down here. Okay, so that on art dragger thing is pretty cool. I turn it off. The thing I wanted to show you was this thing here called tint. We kind of looked at something called colorize when we did hue and saturation. This thing here works the exact same way. It's just a handy way of doing it. Black and whiting it in one color and going to tint. And this color here is the color it's been applied. So it's got this sepia old world color now. I can click on this and you can pick any color you like. So you drag this hue slider up and down to find the kind of color range you want. Let's say I want kind of a warm pink. Click OK. And now when I go to my little on art slider here, I'm going to decide to drag it so it's just a bit brighter. Cool, huh? So it's a good way of, you're meant to be using it just to tint it, but we've totally colorized this thing here. So there's the extra little tip. And that is it. Black and whiting is pretty easy. You get a bit of control, a little bit of extra adjustment with this little slider, and you can tint it if you need to. And always, it's non-destructive, so this thing is just underneath, ready to go. You can delete this layer by clicking it, and see this little trash can down here? You can delete him. I'm super happy with myself, so I am going to leave it here, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Hey there, it is gradient time, and what we want to do is this image here, we've added this cool retro kind of style gradient. I'm going to show you how to do that now in Adobe Photoshop. Let's go. First up, let's open up two images. Okay, it's in the same color folder. It's called Gradient 01 and Gradient 02 from Jordan Andrews. Thank you, Jordan. So we're going to start with Gradient 01. We're going to do two things. We're going to add gradient to text and we're going to add it to the image in the background. We'll do the text first as it's the easiest to do. Okay, so we're going to have a full section on doing type a little bit later in the course, but for now, click on this capital T, your type tool, click once on your keyboard, okay, and over here, in terms of the font size, pick a font, any font you like, okay, and a size, I've got mine up to about 80, okay, yours is probably defaulting to 10 or 12, and over here, okay, we're going to type in all. I'm going to put a return in, start. Don't worry too much about type at the moment. To move your type around, we're going to use our move tool, okay, and I'm just going to click and drag it around. So adding a gradient to this, changing the color of the font's easy. You can double click it here, pick a new font, but let's look at adding a color. Okay, to do it, you need your text layer selected. There's mine. It's got the gray box around it. And down the bottom here, there's one called Effects, and there's one in here called Gradient Overlay. Now what you'll find in Photoshop is that pretty much true of everything you do in Photoshop. There's like 3 or 4 different ways of doing the same thing. What I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to give you, I guess, like there's about 3 different ways of applying gradients. This way I feel like is the most bulletproof in terms of future proofing. Just means it's going to work probably on most circumstances, whereas some of the other gradients don't work in all cases. Anyway, what I'm saying is that later on you might go, hey, why didn't he show me that version of this thing? And you like it better. It's totally cool. Do it. If you stumble across a different way of doing something, totally. There's nothing right or wrong about it. I'm just trying to, I guess, cut it down to the most usable versions. So gradient overlay. And by default, it'll depend on what you last had selected. Now, what we're going to do is where it says gradient, click on this little arrow here. Let's move them up so we can kind of see. Click on this little drop down arrow. By default, you've got some horrific drop shadows. Okay, well, gradients, sorry. Okay, some terrible ones. If you need rainbow colored gradients, you, my friends, are all in luck. Okay, so what we're gonna do is have to go and customize it. So let's start with this first one, black to white. It's the easiest one to customize. Let's click on the little arrow to pop it back up. So what we wanna do now is change the colors used. And you do it by clicking in this color bit here. That's why it's a little bit confusing using gradient overlay. Okay, so you click on this anywhere in this color box, this thing pops up, okay? And what we're gonna do is use the bottom parts of these houses. Okay, so not the top parts, use this bottom bit. So let's double click this first color swatch. Okay, and using this hue slider, drag it up, drag it down, find a color that you want to use. Okay, I'm going to use this one, click OK. Double click this white house. Same thing, drag this hue slider up and down until you find a color you want to use, then click in here. Okay, and you'll have that blue to purple, or at least magenta. Click OK. Well, let's click OK again and have a look at some of the settings. So where it says reverse, just flips it top to bottom. We are using the linear style, so it goes in a line from top to bottom. You can adjust that, which angle. Okay, you can see now it's going kind of more left to right from this side to this side. You can decide any size. Linear, you can play around with radial, and you can experiment on your own, the different ones, angle, reflection, just kind of different ways. You can see the gradients are on both sides. We're just going to go for linear in this case. And in terms of the scale, you can lower it down, it makes a bit more sense. And then it's just got like only a tiny little gradient between these type here. Cool, I'm gonna leave mine at 100%. That's what yours is probably set to. Now, before we do the images, I'm gonna show you gradients are kind of back in, right? When I guess, not even that long ago, maybe 6-7 years ago, gradients, I didn't even have in the class because who used gradients? So gradients have come around full circle and are super cool now, right? Or at least I think so. So where I get my gradient colors from, I'm gonna show you a cool little site. It's this site here, it's called Gradient. I love it. All it does is just show you examples of cool gradients. And yeah, once you've found one you like, let's say we click through here, okay, you can see there's a bunch of different options. Okay, I like on page 2 this one here. It's my favorite one. You'll probably notice it from other videos that I've made, but this is where I get my colors from. Now, to get those colors into Photoshop, the easiest way is, see down the bottom here, there's this yellow and pink. So those are the two colors, right? If you click on it, okay, that is the number you want. It's this hash, and then it's got some letters and some numbers. So just copy that on your keyboard. So on my Mac, it's Command C to copy, or you can right click and go to copy. Jump back into Photoshop. And in Photoshop, remember when we clicked on to change color, it's that big color bar there. Double click the green, blue house. And this is where it goes down here. I'm gonna paste it in. I'm gonna paste everything. I don't think we need the hash. It doesn't seem to mind it at all. You can see the hashes over here. So that's an easy way to pick a color from the internet, is using these letters and numbers. Let's click OK. I'm gonna jump back into Gradient. Grab this end here, grab this. I'm gonna leave the hash off, copy it. Back to Photoshop, double click this house, grab him, paste this one. I love those colors. I'm gonna click OK. Click OK again. You can make any last adjustments, but that's it for, it doesn't really matter what it is. And we've done it for type. I'm gonna click OK, but it doesn't really matter what the layer is. There's a little adjustment we need to do for images, but if it's a logo you've brought in or a shape from somewhere you've made in Illustrator or brought in, or drawn it with the shape tool, which we'll look in a second to do, you can just have it selected, down at effects and go to gradient overlay. Now the next thing I want to do is this image in the background, and there's a slightly different process, okay? Because first of all, if I click on background, this effects is grayed out. And this is going to happen throughout our Photoshop course where you just, it's locked, okay? And it's called background. To unlock the background, double click background, okay? Give it a name, okay? Mine is shoes. And now it becomes unlocked and I get to add that effects. Okay, so that's half of the thing we need to do. Now click on effects, make sure that layer is selected, and go to gradient overlay, just like we did before. The only trouble is, it's kind of doing exactly what happened here, but I can't see the image. So what ends up happening is you need to, we've talked about all of this stuff. It's this one here, blending mode. Okay, blending mode is a way of this gradient blending with the image itself. Okay, so click on normal and just dissolve does nothing. Darken does something. Okay, and you're just gonna have to work your way through until you find a way, a blend that works with your particular gradient and the colors in your image. Now there's no like absolute one you should pick from this. It really depends on your image and the colors in your gradient. So it's a bit of a lottery. Okay, so click on multiply, see if that works for you. And I'm just gonna work way through until I pick something that I like. I'm gonna turn the opacity back up. Color burn, linear burn. You're just gonna watch me now go through them all. Lighten I kind of like. It's kind of got that retro 80s, but in that kind of hipstery way. It's hard to explain, right? But gradients are cool now. Lighten, I know screen's kind of a nice one. Kind color dodge, not so good. Okay, I'm not gonna go through every single one of them because I decided I either liked hard light or I liked screen, and that's totally, sorry, lighten. That's totally just based on my gradients and my images, and I'm gonna leave it there. So that's the difference between doing images and just say straight off text or shape, okay, is that first of all, you need your layer unlocked. Then you add the effect like you do normally, and just make sure when you do add your gradient, you change that blending mode. Oh, before I go, probably super important point that I haven't brought out yet is say you want to adjust this gradient now. Okay, I'll turn it off. See All Star here? You can kind of see the structure. That's my whole layer, and these are the effects. Okay, I can turn either the effect or the gradient itself off to show through that original red color. Okay, so what we can do to edit it, so to turn it off, that's all you need to do. Just leave it there. Okay, but to edit it, I'm gonna have the eyeball on, double click the word gradient overlay, double click. Okay, and you'll see it's gray here and it's got a little tick. Okay, you might be accidentally on something else. So I'm gonna untick that, make sure this is gray. Okay, and that's where you can go and make adjustments. So let's say that I don't like that anymore. So I'm going to reverse it or play with a different blending mode as well. Okay, but that's how you make adjustments. Okay, I'm probably going to turn it off and make this back to white. Okay, so text selected. My little properties panel here would tell me what color that I'm using. I clicked on it, and to get white, just as a little other thing before we go is, watch this, any of these hues, it doesn't matter. If I click, hold, and drag, and I'm dragging kind of past where I need it, because up in the top left is white, and down in the bottom left is black. So what I do is instead of trying to like, some people like just try and click in there, and you get it pretty close, but if you click, hold, and drag past, so I'm holding my mouse down and dragging it past, that assures it's white. All right, I'm gonna click OK. And if you wanna tidy this effects up, so I've turned it off so you can't see it, but say that you're pedantic and you've got a bit of OCD and you wanna get rid of this, you can click, hold, and drag it to this trash can, and that will get rid of it. All right, so it's project time. I'd like you to practice using this one here. Okay, so I don't mind what text you use, but definitely play around with the gradient, okay, on the image. Okay, go to gradient, pick a color, pick your own colors. You can do your own colors. And I'd like to actually see it this time though. You've been following me along. What I'd like you to do is I'd love to see your own one. So dig through your files and see if you can find an image that you're happy to share. Okay, and it can be your family, it can be your house, you can take a quick photo now of yourself, okay, and I wanna see what kind of gradients and stuff you're doing. And you can either post it here on this page, or you can share it with me on social media. On Instagram is bring your own laptop, okay, or on Twitter, it's Dan Loves Adobe. Either way, do an image, can be this one, it can be your own one, and I'd like to see what you've done. All right, that is going to be the end of this one. Let's jump into the next video. I'll see you over. Bye.